I'm sorry about this. It's a psychotic condition in which he believes himself to be a police inspector. Whereas you actually work for the North Thames Gas Board, Mr. Gregson. Remember? Don't forgive the intrusion.
Welcome to episode 8 of the Jonathan Creek podcast, where I think we're probably more gas board than detective.
Definitely. We're not even real podcasters.
We're not.
We're just pretending.
That's clear. I think our audience would attest to that.
Yes. Everyone has one. Came to the head, clearly.
You okay?
I'm not too bad, Gerry. How are you this week?
I am more than adequate.
More than adequate?
Mm-hmm.
For what?
For podcasting.
That's fine then. Let's get on with it.
Okay. What have we got this week?
We have The Scented Room.
That's quite appropriate considering
we're in such a lovely scented room.
We're in a scented room. Everything has a scent.
Well, the cat's toilet is just through that door.
Is that what you're blaming?
Yes.
Okay, we'll stick
on
to
this
that.
occasion.
The scented room, yes, and a one familiar face, certainly to the British public.
Oh, more than one, but one visiting familiar face.
Of course. Do you fancy just starting this week quite early, getting on with it? It's quite warm outside.
Yeah, let's just roll. We'll do a 30-minute podcast. Folk will be happy with that.
You think we can do it in 30 minutes?
No.
Neither do I. We'll give it a good shot.
We'll start with the summary.
Crack on.
In The Scented Room, a prickly newspaper critic and his volatile wife are stunned when a very valuable painting disappears from their home during a visit by a school group. Jonathan quickly discovers what has happened, but a prior scathing review leaves him disinclined to share his knowledge. With their insurance claim lacking evidence and no sign of the painting, can the delightful couple persuade Jonathan to lend a hand, or is this one mystery he will keep to himself?
Thank you, Ian. A fragrant summary there. We begin this week at Cicada Park House.
We do.
This appears to be an old stately mansion that has been opened up to the public.
It does seem like one of those ones where the folks still live there, but there are publicly viewable areas.
Yes, that's because their ancestors were given these large swaths of land and houses, and now they've found that they're not particularly great business people and can't maintain the houses and the ground, so they have to open it up in order to get grants and also to make some cash perhaps from tourism.
You'd think they'd just sell them.
They don't want to do that. They want to keep it in the family. I mean, these are lords and ladies and all this type of stuff. It would be an outrage. It would be an embarrassment to them if they were the heirs who lost the...
Well, you would think they could come up with some sort of arrangement whereby they maybe lease it long term to the National Trust for a fee equivalent to its value, more or less. Like a 99-year lease or something.
Well, maybe that's what they're doing, and they're allowed to live on it.
Yeah, but would you want to live in a house that folk are poking their noses around?
No, but what's the alternative?
Well, build a cottage at the end of the garden, live there.
A lot of these people have got no money.
Yeah, but once they've leased it out at that rate, they should be able to afford something. Who knows? It's not uncommon. This does happen. It's not just a conceit for the story.
No. In fairness, though, the lifestyle, I don't think suggests that. The lord and lady don't seem to be...
No, they seem to be jet setters of a certain extent, or to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm. We'll chat about them as we go along. We begin with a van of schoolgirls arriving at the house, and inside we see a pleasant and curious young Benjamin reading a book in his bedroom before heading down to be greeted by Martha, the secretary to the lady of the house.
The young boy looked to me like a young Steven Spielberg type.
He's the sort of kid you would have seen perhaps in The Never-Ending Story.
He would have been Rick Moranis' son in any movie.
Yes. The younger son.
Yes. The one who wasn't quite sporty enough.
Yeah.
Or he would maybe grow up to be Rick Moranis later in the movie.
Now Martha begins giving these kids a talk, which is part of the tour of this old house that has been opened to the public. And we learn that Sylvester Le Flay is Teresa's husband. What's his job?
He's a theatre critic and cultural affairs columnist at the Sunday Telegraph.
Yes. His wife is the lady of the house, as I said before. I think she's the heiress.
Well, yeah, I was going to say the way it's presented makes it sound like it's her family home rather than his.
Down at the pool, as well as culture, we detect that perhaps Sylvester enjoys other pastimes as he gets a massage by a young woman while Cedric takes an acerbic review of a new play.
Yeah, he also criticises the audience around him, I think, for enjoying the show that he considered to be terrible.
He's clearly a bit of a snob.
A little bit. You've seen them in the newspapers reviewing things, haven't you? Seems to be a trend.
For some of them.
Absolutely.
Teresa looks on suspiciously. She's doing some gardening, I think, as the masseuse's hands rise further up Sylvester's legs. And at this point, we see Ben ask for something.
It was a treehouse.
Yeah.
He's told yes, but not right now.
Did you ever know anyone who had a proper treehouse that you would see? I don't mean the type that you would have built these days. I mean, a couple of planks of wood, things that you would see in movies, kids' movies, where they'd sort of build it themselves and it'd be...
Yeah, not quite as ramshackle. My next door neighbours when I was a kid built one for their family.
Yeah, but that was like a professional...
It was.
A joiner came in.
ELC type thing,
Yeah. It's one of these sort of myths that you don't... I've never really seen.
It's in no way safe. You wouldn't let your children build a ramshackle treehouse and spend time in it.
No, it would have to be built by a joiner.
Yeah.
Or someone very handy yourself if you knew what you were doing.
After the first bout of tetanus, you wouldn't be having the kids back out there.
Yeah, but even the concept of it, I mean, it must be really hard to get the branches that were lined up enough so that you could lay a level
flat
floor
and
then get walls that would... what I'm thinking of is perhaps Bart Simpson's treehouse. You just don't see that.
No, certainly not in this country.
No, maybe it's something to do with the trees that you have in gardens here.
Could be the type of trees that are prevalent here.
Anyway, so he's asked for this treehouse, and she's a bit distracted. What is she doing?
She is seething.
Why?
Because she doesn't understand how massages work.
I think she probably does.
You think she does? You don't think it's a physiotherapy massage?
No, I don't think so. It's hard to tell. I would... maybe don't find out that much, but I think she's probably got a sort of legitimate grievance here.
You think?
I can see he's got a wandering eye, I'd imagine.
Well, maybe he does, but I'm not sure that the masseuse is doing anything she shouldn't be. No,
but perhaps, you wouldn't go, you would ask for permission, or you'd be instructed, what sort of massage would be acceptable.
Maybe. In any event, she feels it's crossed the line, and she takes... her husband a sandwich, a saumon fumé.
Okay. Now, this isn't the type of sandwich you'd want to bite into.
I presume it's got stinging nettles in it.
It does have, yeah. You seen that?
People cook with these now.
Yeah.
They're quite popular.
Yeah, you boil them.
Yeah.
You don't eat them raw.
I certainly wouldn't.
No. So yeah, she puts these nettles in a sandwich, brings it over to him on a plate. He's takes a bite and... it results in what you would expect.
Yeah, he yells and jumps and the masseuse yells and falls in the pool.
And Teresa is not for listening to any excuses Sylvester tries to make from his swollen mouth.
No, I mean, we get a brief cut scene as the kids are shown around the inside of the house, and we're right back to him screaming and yelling about her being a demented harpy. And she sees infidelity everywhere she looks.
Yeah. Like I say, she may be paranoid, but there's often a good reason for paranoia. Perhaps in the past there's been some incident.
Maybe. It's not paranoia if they are out to get you.
True. So back inside, Martha is, as you mentioned there, is lecturing the girls on the old imported and ornate Spanish doors that we see hanging around the place before showing them to the jewel of Cicada Park.
I mean, it's the kind of tour that I would have hated as a schoolboy.
Yes, but I think I would have made the most of it. I could see myself, we did go on these sort of tours, and you would, do the educational bit, then you'd be allowed to run riot up to mischief gardens, or inside. So I think I would have liked being there, but would have been a bit bored at the Spanish doors.
Definitely. Yeah, so this main event, as it were, of the tour is a very famous painting by El Greco, which I think means the Greek, maybe?
Yeah, sounds like it.
Jimmy the Greek. It's called The Kiss of Judas, and it's a picture of... Do you remember a few years ago that woman rubbed the painting off by mistake, the cleaner, and then tried to repaint it?
Yeah.
It looks like her version of Jesus being kissed by, obviously, Judas. And the children are allowed in only in small groups because of the humidity and all this.
Yeah, so it's kept in its own room. It's got its own security systems, its own temperature control ecosystem.
But No sort of frame in front of it or anything. It's you can touch it if you want,
Yeah,
though it's probably discouraged.
I'd imagine so. Not only does it have these systems, it also has old Eric sitting across from the door to the room.
Yes, he's the guard of the painting.
Yes, and he sits there, and is that his job? He watches that door.
It seems like it. I don't know if he has other duties, but that appears to be his role when there's others in the building.
Sure. So the girls split into two groups, as you mentioned. Only 8 people can fit at one time into the room. So the first group enter, and we see the overhead ambient light before the door is closed to keep the temperature consistent.
Yes, there's special glass and stuff like that so that you can't damage the painting.
I thought you said there wasn't.
Yeah, not in front of the painting, in the roof.
Yes.
But there's no glass in front of the painting, which you would expect. If you've ever been to see the Mona Lisa in the Louvre, there's about 8 feet of glass or something like that between that painting and any human being. But obviously the measures for this particular piece of art are not quite the same. I mean, it's valued at 1.5 million. I don't think that's maybe top of the range. That's only
Not at all, no. I mean, there'll be plenty of people in London, just millionaire businessmen, who would have these things as a...
Yeah,
1.5 is that's a lot of money, but I don't think you need...
Yeah, it's not a piece of art that calls for this elaborate system of defence.
No, that would be the type of system you would think of.
But they do make the point that this is a requirement of the insurance company. So in order to get cover for this painting, they've been required to introduce these measures.
Yeah, but again, 1.5 million, you wouldn't expect them to insist that an old man sits and watches it 24 hours a day. That's quite a...
A very specific requirement. Eric must sit in this chair at this angle.
Yeah. So anyway, we see Eric eat his spam sandwich.
See, it looked more like corned beef to me. But
Yeah, I'd originally noted corned beef, but then changed it when I was informed that I was wrong.
well, he says it was spam, but he could be wrong.
So the door is opened for a few moments to allow the first group to come out. It's closed before the second group go in so they can chat about something. And when it's opened again, there is a shock.
Yeah, the painting's not there.
The frame is empty.
Eric is devastated.
Yeah, well, Martha panics and he runs to tell Sylvester, who comes in from outside and tells Martha to call the police.
And yes, and looks out the window as the children are loaded back onto their transit van.
Yeah, maybe I'm just being cynical, but I wouldn't be loading these. I mean, it was there, the girls were in the room and it was gone.
Yeah, you wouldn't let them leave.
Immediate suspicion would have to fall upon them.
You would at least check their bags and
Of
their
course you would.
pockets.
Yes.
Anyway, they don't. And as Martha calls the police, she hears a yell from the next door room.
Yes. Sylvester is apparently being struck on the back of the head by an unseen assailant. And we get a quick shot outside of a now quite creepy looking Benjamin.
Yeah, he's looking in the window as his father explains to Martha that he saw someone run away.
Yeah, he's not concerned at all.
Doesn't look too fussed.
No. So we're back at the house later. The cops are taking statements and we get a point of view shot as forensics are going over the scene.
We always get a point of view shot.
We do.
Increasingly less important to the plot.
In another room, we see footprints and what looks like dust leading to an open window.
Yes. I think that's the library.
There's questions about this, isn't there? I mean, it's like, what, you keep a really manky house.
Cleaner's not going to be impressed that this has been seen by so many people.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
It seems to be on the edge of believability.
We leave the house for now. Where do we go?
A field.
A park.
Some kind of public area.
A field. A field's where you have cows. It's a public park.
Okay. Jonathan and Adam are running through a trick, a buried alive style magic trick.
Yeah, and it's in a downpour. So we see Adam being loaded into a coffin-shaped box.
Yes.
And is lowered into this hole in the ground.
And there's an outraged reaction from an onlooker.
Yeah, I'm not... Okay, tell me what happens.
There's a wee old lady who watches with the growing incredulity as she sees these men lower the body into the ground, into the coffin and into the ground. And she assumes that they've killed this person, and her instinctive reaction is to attack them
With an umbrella.
with an umbrella and mace of some kind that she was carrying around. She starts yelling abuse at them, calls them gangsters and murdering scum.
Yeah, I've got an issue in general, not just with this particular scene, but I've always been annoyed at old people being funny because they're old, doing things, acting in a certain way and just laughing because they're old.
I didn't think that was the joke. I think the joke was just that her sense of British values was offended by this criminal activity.
Yeah, but it's meant to be funny because it's this old woman attacking. If it was a 35-year-old man getting up there and fighting him, you wouldn't be going, that's funny. It's because, look at the old lady. She's confused. She got it wrong, and but she's harmless. And it's like, it's not. I'm not saying it doesn't offend me that they're laughing at an old lady. It's the opposite. It used to happen in game shows all the time, especially Barrymore, where you would get a game show contestant and they would say something quite risky, but everyone would laugh because they're old and they've made some sort of innuendo. It used to really get on my beeps. It annoys me. It's like, no, it's not. I don't care. Just because you're old doesn't make you funny. And yeah, that's old woman going, oh, look at her. She's been violent and hitting someone with an umbrella. No, it annoys me.
It did make me think back to the previous season when they did the advert on Jack in the Box. When he was doing that, slipping on the banana and everything. Yeah,
it's just... anyway, where are we?
Okay, they redo this... Some time has passed, and they're redoing this rehearsal.
Yeah, there's some more onlookers.
Yeah, what I assumed they intended to be police, but who were dressed like traffic wardens.
Yeah, they're not police, they're just traffic wardens.
Okay, so it's not some suggestion that this woman's shooted in the police and these two women have shown up.
No, I think there's a scene in there. Why are traffic wardens in the park? There's no cars there.
Well, that's bizarre in itself.
Yeah.
Why are traffic wardens in the park?
To prevent people being murdered.
Above and beyond.
We cut to the trailer, Adam's trailer in the park. And as he peers out, Jonathan takes satisfaction in reading about Sylvester's misfortune.
It's the exact phrase I've written. Jonathan is pleased to read about Sylvester's misfortune.
Yeah, so he's evidently not been Klaus's kindest critic.
Well, I think Jonathan's committed the bad review to memory.
Mm-hmm.
He quotes it, he says, with Adam Klaus performing miracles, Jesus has nothing to worry about.
And we should be clear here, so Adam's in the trailer, so this is all an illusion, he's not in...
Yeah, he's not in the coffin at all. We cut away to Maddie at a therapist's. We heard a bit of it at the top of the show, but we'll maybe come to that in a moment.
Yeah, she is revealing some of her deepest, most erotic, hilarious feelings about Jonathan to her counsellor when in bursts the man we did here at the top of the podcast.
A little bit of trivia. The condition that this man has, and which he also, before the clip that we heard, accused the therapist of having, David Rennick just came across it in a newspaper article and thought that'd be quite good to put in the show.
Are you sure? Because there was a movie.
You read about it in The Independent. I'm very specific about this.
Alright, there was a movie out before then in the 80s with Michael Keaton.
Right.
And I think with Boyle and Christopher Lloyd, the Dream Team.
Right.
And there was a few scenes like that in that movie. Overlooked.
I have concerns if this is a genuine mental health condition to be playing it for laughs.
Yeah, it's alright, I think.
It's at the point of absurdity. I think it's okay, but how does this man hold down his job at the gas board if he keeps thinking he's a policeman? I mean, how does he do the duties of his job? Does he not sit there thinking, why is a policeman doing these duties?
Yeah, I don't think he does. I think perhaps this has been brought on by stress or pressure, and he's off on sick leave. I don't think he pops in once a week just for a chat and then he goes back to his work.
Yeah, okay. Maddie goes on to explain to her therapist that a ghost from her past has come out of nowhere and kind of caught her by surprise a little bit.
Yes, we hear more later in the podcast, which I enjoyed. She also acknowledges that there is an issue with Jonathan, so there is something there that she has to clear up. From the therapy session, we go to Agent Barry's office.
We hear Maddie say that the therapist encouraged her to proceed with this ghost from the past, and Barry obviously seems to know what it is.
And he is finally being introduced to Jonathan by Maddie, but he's late for lunch, so I think he has to head off. However, he has been taken into her confidence, and he, as you said there, asks about her personal trouble.
Yeah, like I said, the therapist suggests that she pushes on and deals with it, so she's going to go ahead and see what happens.
Back to Cicada, what was it?
Well, Cicada? I don't know. We should probably say, before they go out there, is Maddie offered to take Jonathan for lunch. So he thinks he's on his way to a fancy restaurant.
Correct, yes. And he is initially impressed by the luncheon location, although he quickly becomes suspicious, and Maddie has to elbow him and explain why they are there.
Yeah, he says to Martha that he's looking for a simple omelette. And Maddie admits that it's Lifley's home, and Jonathan, who is so sharp on other things, realises he's been a bit slow-witted on this one.
Yeah, so after her confession, she suggests that he should be intrigued, even although Sylvester has given his show a few iffy reviews. But she knows how to push his buttons.
Well, she uses reverse psychology, which I was under the impression never works. But it seems to work here.
It works with my 4-year-old all the time.
Does it?
Yeah. I have to use it dozens of times a day.
There's no way you could finish that fish finger. It's far too big for you.
Just had to do that about an hour ago.
They go through to the room where the painting was, and little Benjamin comes in. Benjamin,
yeah.
comes in and asks if they're married because he saw them arguing. That's quite a sad little moment.
Yeah, he was quite a sad little boy. I felt a bit sorry for him. He's one of these kids, the way he looks and the way he acts. It's a fine line. You could either think he's a horrible little brat, or you think, he's a nice little boy. And I think in this case, he's a nice wee guy.
Yeah, in trying circumstances.
Yeah.
His mother shows up, Lady, whatever her face
Before that was a nice line as well. When he mentions that they're arguing, yeah, he assumes that they're married, and Jonathan says, no, they're just arguing in sin.
Yes. His mother shows up, cuts him off, tells him not to talk to strange people.
She's a horrible creature, isn't she? She displays terrible snobbery here.
Yeah, she talks about the reward, and Jonathan hasn't heard about this yet, so he's a bit surprised.
Yeah, before that, she mentioned something about playing with tools or a mechanic or something like that, and then blames the ex-nanny called Melissa.
Yes, we hear that name.
So yeah, tell me about this reward.
50,000 English pounds, apparently.
I'm not so sure why he is against this reward. Like, I don't know why.
Well, I think he thinks this is why Maddie's brought him. She wants this reward. It's not just the mystery. You know, he likes the mysteries for the sake of the mysteries.
Yeah, but I appreciate that the money isn't, his primary driver. I don't see why he would not want to take this money.
I think he just doesn't like the idea. I don't know what his reason is. But I think Maddie was quite clear that he wouldn't like it, and that's probably why she hasn't mentioned it.
Mm-hmm. You see, Jonathan, he's got the family windmill, so I assume it's mortgage free.
Probably.
I'm trying to work out how successful Adam is. You say he's on a percentage.
Well, he's very successful given what happens at the end of this episode.
Sorry, in fairness as well, we know how successful he is because we've seen his house and it's massive. And
yeah.
We assume then, therefore, that he's not short of a bob or two.
You get the impression he's one of the country's leading acts.
Yeah.
Like bigger than Paul Daniels.
Yeah.
And he's prime.
So, never, no one. So, Jonathan, if he's on a substantial cut of the earnings of Adam's shows, he's probably doing all right for himself.
Yeah, I wouldn't think he'd be on a substantial cut though. I think he'd probably be on a salary of some kind.
I'm not so sure. I'm not sure.
Adam does seem to value him. It's not like he never threatens him with his job or anything like that.
If you think about it, but it's not. I don't think it as a salary. I don't think it can be a salary. This isn't something you could just easily replace. So this is an act, but just because he's the front end of it, it's like Jonathan's creating the tricks. In fact, it could be the opposite way around.
Anyone could perform them.
Yes, there'll be plenty of performers, but there'll be not as many.
I'm not sure though that the money always follows the logic. I would think he's the big name, he's the celebrity. He gets the big paycheck. Jonathan gets,
I suppose,
a much smaller paycheck.
Okay, yeah, sure, but I think what it would depend on is how long and how their relationship started. So if they were both nothing and they started together, and this was always a relationship, then it'd be a case of, right, we'll go 50-50 or whatever. But obviously, if Adam was a star first and then Jonathan joined him, then it would be, well, I'll give you.
I will pay you this salary or this percent out of the money I make. So
yeah,
he probably works for Adam rather than both of them working for the same people.
In any case, even if it was a salary,
that is okay.
It probably does.
He won't have many overheads, doesn't he? He lives a simple life. He's got the same coat all the time, the same clothes.
Exactly.
Doesn't get his hair cut.
Yeah. And in fairness to Adam, I don't think he is particularly stingy.
No, he seems fairly generous. He's
quite extravagant.
Yeah. I mean, Jonathan only eats Weetabix as well, so he's got a big saving there.
And I could see it if Jonathan says Adam... Because you remember, Jonathan puts up with a lot of Adam's nonsense.
He gets out of trouble as well.
Yes, it's not just a professional life. He has to, get involved in Adam's relationships.
Yes, even though he doesn't want to.
Yeah, so Adam can trust him. I reckon if Jonathan ever went to him and said, Adam, I can't do this anymore, he'd say, okay, I'll just double your salary then. I think that's where we are. So, Where are we?
We're with Eric, who was watching the door.
And he tells Maddie what he saw before we hear Sylvester have his say.
Now, you see, this is where I'm sitting here. Not over there, but here, where I've got a direct line through that door. Eating my lunch, which on Friday comprised a bottle of Lucozade and a spam sandwich. When Mrs. Parrish came out with those girls, it was there, on the wall, in its frame. Half a minute later, when they opened the door, gone. And if you're thinking that someone else might have stepped in or out in between time without my noticing, when that painting was stolen, there was no one inside that room.
So you've come out of the Flemish Gallery and you're standing, looking that way out of the window when someone attacked you from behind with a sharp instrument?
As I seem to have told everyone 100 times. And then I fell to the ground.
Where?
Pardon me?
You couldn't show us. On the floor, where you fell? Exactly.
And that's when you heard whoever it was running away?
Presumably into the library, because that's where they found a set of footprints in the dust, which do not correspond to any shoes worn by members of this household.
So as we heard Sylvester talk, we saw Jonathan befriend Benjamin.
Yes, they have a little relationship going there. Do you not think Eric, the actor who plays Eric, sounded a bit like David Bradley there? His voice just reminded me of David Bradley.
Who's David Bradley?
Oh, what would you know him from? You don't watch Game of Thrones or the Harry Potter movies?
Nah.
Broadchurch.
I did watch it, but I can't remember it.
He was the old man who had the newsagents.
Oh, the old suspected paedophile?
Yes.
Catweasel type?
Yeah. He's
Yeah.
really good in a lot of things.
Yeah. I can't remember his voice.
He's also played the first Doctor of Doctor Who in recent years.
Anyway, I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, he's just got a similar sort of voice.
Mm-hmm.
You could see the joy on Jonathan's face when he made Sylvester lie on the floor, couldn't you?
Yes, this reminded me of the times when Columbo, there were certain killers that Columbo really didn't like, and I think he took a little bit of pleasure in winding them up.
Yeah.
Milo Janis, for one.
He did not like him,
No.
especially when he made him run on the beach.
So we go to the library, the foot-printed library, and after looking at these prints, Jonathan points out an obvious problem that even a 5-year-old could work out.
Yeah, and Benjamin does.
Yeah. I mean, Sylvester and Teresa, they're stumped, but young Benjamin gives them the answer. What is it?
Oh, why would you dodge around the carpet, and why would you walk? That's the two problems.
Yeah, see, I don't like this. I mean, we won't discuss what actually happened here, but you'd have to be a real idiot to think that that would be how someone would cross a carpet.
Yeah, it certainly raises questions, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Additionally, it's clear from their gait that the person was walking and not running.
Yeah.
So both of these facts determine that it was not the person who attacked Sylvester.
Or at least, if it was, they were acting very strangely.
Now he seems annoyed by this and asks who Maddie and Jonathan are. He's getting frustrated.
Yeah, Jonathan reminds him, quoting still further lines from his scathing review of the Klaus show. He says that Le Fay called it a ragbag of charmless chicanery, ill-conceived by witless tricksters who seemed to confuse mystery with misery.
Now, Maddie, obviously still with an eye on the 50,000, tries to laugh things off, pretend it's a big joke. But Sylvester does concede that Jonathan's skills may be useful and asks for insight.
Well, Jonathan says he's not able to help on this occasion.
Yes, so an angry Le Fay says that it's been a waste of time, this has defeated everyone, but Jonathan says no.
Yeah, he solved it, he's just not going to tell him.
Yeah, that would be frustrating. Into the car afterwards, and Maddie is not happy at this pettiness.
No, and she can't even persuade Jonathan to tell her.
Yes, they talk about what they know.
I think she just wants the information so she can get the reward.
Of course, yes.
And I think he knows that, so he's not forthcoming.
Yes, but the witless trickster is having none of it.
No. I think they're on the way to Adam's house, because we get a cut scene there where he talks to what you assume is a woman, but turns out to be a tiger.
Yeah, he's rubbing its stomach. It seems real.
I think it was a real tiger. I would not be doing that, no matter how much you paid me.
Yeah, there's some guy off camera saying, that's a friendly one. It's cool.
Yeah, he's trained.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, well, what if something upsets him?
Yeah.
What if he doesn't like the way I smell, or he doesn't like the way I touch him?
Yeah, you would think that would be a bit, if you're a production company, thinking about insurances and things, going, do you know what, we probably won't have a live tiger being stroked, right? There's no real need for, it's funny, but there's no real need
Where's
for
the
that
insurance
risk.
in this? Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a good thing, though.
I mean, cats, I've got a kitten about the size of my palm, and if you touch the wrong bit on her back, she tries to kill you. Imagine you did that to a tiger. I don't think it would be as funny.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't be funny. It would be funny if it was you, not me.
I still don't think it would be funny.
Yeah, not for you.
Yeah, I still don't think it would be funny either way.
Yeah, for you.
Okay. Possibly Darwinian, but...
Yeah. Well, there'd be lots of people thinking it'd be funny. If that went on the news...
Deserved, anyway.
Yeah. And since, a man in Scotland dies after rubbing a tiger's back, people would be passing that around, forwarding it on, saying, look at this idiot. Anyway, let's move on from this.
Maddie and Jonathan arrive, but before they get out of the car, or before Jonathan gets out of the car, I think she's dropping him off, she asks for a clue to get her started, and he says to her, sort of enigmatically, look to Eric's spam sandwich.
Yeah, this won't be a help to her at all.
It contains the key to the whole affair.
Yeah.
And that is deliberately obtuse of him because it's really nothing to do with it.
Yes, it has.
It doesn't give the answer.
Everything to do with it was sandwiched between the doors.
Yeah, it's a sandwich, but that Eric's sandwich, it could be any sandwich. So you look to a sandwich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Inside, Jonathan is dismayed but not surprised to see the two traffic wardens. We didn't mention earlier they were a couple of young ladies.
We didn't mention that Adam was keen to speak to them and had to be held back by Jonathan pointing out he was meant to be in the coffin.
Yeah, he was in the trailer at that point, perving out the
window, yeah.
Out the window, okay. So yeah, they run by in bikinis and swimwear before Adam asks for advice on his imminent meeting with the Queen, where he is to receive an MBE, and he wants to accept it with a flourish.
He wants to do some magic in front of the Queen. There's also a reference, actually, in this scene to the show that's coming up being the biggest open-air magic show for 70 years, which I think gives an idea that he's a fairly prominent performer.
Sure. Over at Maddie's flat, Jonathan sneaks up on her as she looks at her diary, and we see her noting that Gordon Hill is coming down.
On Thursday. We assume this is the ghost from her past.
We do. There is a little atmosphere, but she agrees to take him to lunch, but needs to make some calls first.
That's when he sees the diary.
Yeah, so she leaves and he sneaks a look at her diary. It's not a nice thing to do that.
It's a bit untrustworthy, isn't it? You wouldn't do that to your friends.
Although, in his defence, what I might say is that perhaps it's just like a business diary. It's, as opposed to your personal thoughts. It's an appointments book.
Yeah. We kind of cut then to after their lunch. We see them return to the flat, and they've obviously been well fed at this Italian restaurant. And Maddie's questioning whether Jonathan actually knows the answer to the puzzle. Yeah,
she's been quite bullish, clearly having been unsuccessful in her attempts to wheedle it from him during lunch.
Did you see what she did with the wine bottle?
Oh,
She seemed to me had brought back the remains of their bottle of wine from lunch, and she used a filter, a funnel, to pour it into a larger bottle that she obviously kept at home.
I don't understand that.
Well, you have to buy a bottle at lunch, presumably. If you don't finish it, you bring it back. She maybe does this every time she goes for lunch. She adds it to this bigger bottle, so she's got a big bottle of wine. She's not having to keep like 6 half bottles of wine.
Yeah, but that doesn't make sense. For one, you'd have to keep buying the same type of wine. You're not going to mix all these different wines together.
Yeah, she only likes one type of wine.
Yeah, but not if you're going to a restaurant. You'd have to go to the same restaurant then, because not every restaurant will have the same type of wine. In fact,
if you mix one brand of Pinot Grigio with another brand of Pinot Grigio, she's probably quite happy with it.
I would never do that. Plus, the fact if you bring back a couple of glasses of wine, if you're buying so much wine that you've got a big bottle, you would drink it that night. It's not like
I'm seeing what I saw. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I just don't think it's like it's quite funny looking at her what she was up to, but it doesn't really make sense. Just drink that. Yeah,
drink it or throw it out.
Yeah,
yeah. It's white wine as well. Once it's open, it's going to lose its.
Yeah, it's not going to be, and especially mixing it with all sorts of other stuff. No.
Maddie reckons that if she really put the case persuasively to Le Flay, she could probably get him to double the reward And Jonathan just thinks this will be more for him to turn down.
Mm-hmm. She appears to give up when Jonathan refuses to budge, but this seems to do the trick.
It does. He begins to reveal all.
As that was a particularly fine linguine you just bought me, let's have a quick canter through it. The first load of schoolgirls come out with his secretary. The painting's there in full view of everyone present. In the space of 30-odd seconds, it's been cut out of its frame and removed from the room. There's no conceivable place it could have been hidden. All this by a thief who somehow managed to spirit himself through the gallery without being seen by anyone and knock our beloved Mr. Flay to the floor outside.
The overhead window doesn't open. Police said there was no sign it had been tampered with. I don't know. I've been working on every conceivable possibility.
Did it ever occur to you that someone could have cut it without actually being in the room, using a high-powered laser through the glass in the ceiling?
You are kidding me.
Of course I am. The idea's ridiculous. In fact, the way this trick was worked is so sublimely simple, when I tell you, you'll wonder why you didn't get it in 5 seconds flat.
For goodness sake, put me out of my misery. What was the significance of the sodding spam sandwich?
Ah, absolutely. And, for that matter, what's the significance of the scented room? Which puts another spin on it altogether.
The scented room?
Is it just me, or had they not mentioned the scent of the room up until now?
I don't think they had. Well, yeah, I don't think they had. I don't think anyone thought it was a relevant point.
It's the title of the episode. I thought they would have maybe played it less subtly.
Sure. So a passionate anti-potpourriist, Jonathan, tells Maddie that the smell is not decorative.
Yes, at which stage he is rudely interrupted.
Yeah, she's frustrated at this point, and the door is flung open by whom?
Her mentally ill friend from the therapist.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed this. So yeah, the gas board detective walks in. He's after Jonathan. He pretends to be the detective in this case, demands that Jonathan gives up everything he knows, but Jonathan's too sharp.
Yes, he notes that the man's ID is a gas board ID. He's outraged and leaves.
Yeah, so that scuppered Matt. She was so close as well.
Yeah, she was going to get it, and then she ruined it herself.
Yeah, I think she
this.
pleads that she had to have a backup plan,
Yeah.
in case. Back to Cicada Park.
Benjamin's got a new treehouse like he asked for.
Not quite. He has got a millionaire's treehouse, one of these professionally built ones that I would love actually, but
It doesn't even look like a treehouse. It's made of metal, I think. It's
Yeah.
got a lift to get you in.
yeah, he wants to be a little boy doing little boy things, and they have no idea how to satisfy him.
No. They're not really that interested.
No, they don't get him. They shouldn't have had kids.
Yeah, no.
So Ben sits down and he plays with the elastic band trick that Jonathan had showed him earlier in the episode.
Yeah, there's a phone call comes in for Sylvester, and it's not a good one.
Who is it?
The insurance company.
Why is it not good?
They're not paying out on the painting. There's not a plausible story about the theft. They are not willing to accept it's been stolen.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm not sure how that would work in real life.
Well, they'd say you've obviously hidden it or something, or sold it and not. It's not gone. There's no evidence of a theft.
Yeah, but if you've got lots of witnesses, all those school kids, plus staff.
Yeah, I don't know. Depending on the insurance contract, what the terms of it were, if it's their sole discretion.
Yeah.
At this point, Sylvester says that if Creek knows, he will have to tell them.
Yeah, over to the windmill, and Jonathan answers the phone to a raging Adam.
Yeah, I think he expects it to be Adam. He thinks he's going to have a problem for the show.
Yeah.
But it's not. It is kind of a problem for the show, but that's not really why he's calling.
Explain.
The local council are under the influence of a lady cutler who has suggested and indeed achieved the rejection of the permit for the magic show in the park.
Yep. So Adam is putting the pressure on Jonathan to resolve their troubles, or else he'll be in trouble himself.
I believe so.
So this is what we talked about earlier on there. So Jonathan, he's not so comfortable that he can say, yeah, too bad, Adam.
Yeah, no, you can't.
Back over to Barry's office. We hear him on the phone dismiss the concept of email. So I guess
I'll never catch on.
no. As Jonathan enters, I'm we discover quite a bit more about Maddie's background.
I found this scene very uncomfortable.
Tell you what, let's listen to it first and we can chat about it.
Okay.
Jonathan, to what do we owe? You're looking lost.
This stolen painting, something's come up and I've got to move on it. Of course, I can't track her nibs down this morning for love nor money. I didn't expect to. I know it's today he's coming down this Gordon Hill. I just thought if you had maybe a contact number, if she can put her love life on hold for 24 hours.
How much has she told you about all this?
About what?
You've known Madeline how long? Matter of months? You'll not have scratched her surface yet, so to speak. You do. You'll find a lot of protective layers. Like, she makes it look very easy, but it hasn't been. You never knew her father. Neither did she. Her mother was a wreck who lived on her nerves. One day, she was stopped in a store, accused of stealing a packet of bacon. She said it was all a mistake. Supermarket took her to court. Next day, she pulled the wire from an electric iron and put it in her mouth. Maddie came home from work. She was 17. Ran away after that to try and put the pain behind her, except it never goes. It just sits there, waiting for the day when you'll come back and confront it. For Maddie, today is that day.
Okay, you were saying.
Number of issues. Number one, that accent's terrible.
Fair enough.
It Disney. Number two, what right does he have to share Maddie's personal life story with Jonathan, who he says himself has only known her for a matter of months? Surely this is the sort of thing that you would think, well, if she wants him to know this, she will tell him.
Okay, two things myself then. I think this scene and the next scene are what make Jonathan Creek stand out from lots of other shows. Mm-hmm. Really appreciated it. The layering of the characters, we find out more about them, the relationships, their history. I think it's more than a sort of superficial understanding.
I don't argue with that, that's fine.
So it's creating depth. Yes, on the face of it, I would agree that someone else giving out your life story to someone generally isn't what you should be doing. However, what I would say is that we heard earlier in this episode that Maddie confides in Barry. Now, she may well have expressed how much she thinks of Jonathan, so he may well know how much Maddie likes and trusts, and there is a relationship there. He's not telling a complete stranger, and maybe because Barry does know Maddie so well, maybe he is in a position to say, do you know what, Maddie does want to tell Jonathan, but she's too much of a strong woman, or it's too emotional for her to just to bring it up out of nowhere. And in fact, I think she may appreciate me being the person who does it, because she wants him to know, but she's never going to, or it'll be hard for her to do it himself, and he feels confident enough in his relationship with Maddie and what she knows about what Maddie thinks of Jonathan to do that.
I think it's a judgment call that he's made here.
Yeah.
Which may be right, may be wrong.
Yeah. But I think Barry knows Maddie well. I think Barry's got a long-standing relationship, and I think that he would know what Maddie would be happy and comfortable with.
Okay.
Anyway.
We find out then, obviously, that Gordon Hill is not...
Well, okay, let's gently ease into it. So we go over to this place, and a tearful and emotional Maddie is watching some houses being destroyed.
Yes.
And just then, she got a tear in her eye. Jonathan, he appears and embraces her, puts his arm around her, and she is very happy that he is there.
Yes.
And as they walk away, the camera pans on to a road sign.
That annoyed me. I think surely it's taken as given what Gordon Hill is at this point. You don't need a big neon sign and flashing lights saying,
I'm not,
that building was Gordon Hill.
Yeah,
Did you get it?
Yeah, no, I'm not sure if I agree with that. I think you did need that. I think you, again, it depends. I mean, we were watching it now. We knew what that was, even if but I'm thinking if you're watching that for the first time back then, and it's a family show as well. It's not for necessarily, it's not just an adult program. So there might be, when I watched it, well, seen it when I watched it, I was still an adult, unfortunately. But there might be sort of younger people watching that as well who are not quite as, might need a little bit more of a prod.
There's viewers of another show who might have found that demolition familiar.
Yes.
The footage was borrowed
It was.
from Touch of Frost.
It was. Again, who's doing the trivia on this episode? You or me?
Me.
You? Okay, that's fine. Good.
So I'll do some if you get
Good.
anything
So
that I've
you've
not
got
covered.
all the characters.
No, you can do that.
Oh,
I'm
right,
not interested
okay.
in that.
Okay. We've not done any throughout this episode. I think we'll just do them all at the end.
This is something that we're backloading this episode. We saved all our clips for the second half.
I can't remember. I'm an hour in already. This half-hour episode. Let's progress. Let's crack right on here.
Maddie is driving Jonathan to the girls' I think it's a girls' school.
Yep.
Second school that's been single gender that we've had in the show.
Yeah. So it's lunchtime, I think, and they're looking for this last piece in the jigsaw. Jonathan is, and we see them. There's a little sort of montage as they approach.
You wouldn't get to do that nowadays.
Well, that's exactly what I've got. There's no way two strangers are, especially looking like Jonathan with his duffel coat on, and they pull up in a Volvo estate, with the big boot where he can transport bodies. There's absolutely no way you'd be allowed just to hang around a girls' school talking to the pupils. I mean, it's sad that we have to address that, but
You wouldn't even get on the premises.
no. I mean,
There'd be a separate door that you would have to go to get access. You'd have to buzz in. You'd have to speak and
but it's not
explain.
just me, is it? You're watching that going, oh, you can't do that.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the girls are only, 12, 13?
Anyway, we don't really find out what happens during these conversations, but we head back to Cicada Park.
Yes. I've completely got the name of that wrong. In my notes say Sickory Hill.
Sickory Hill?
It's like Gordon Hill's sister.
Fair enough. Sickory Hill, yeah. Gordon Park. Martha welcomes them in, and Jonathan conspiratorially asks Benjamin if he would like to learn another trick.
Turn the lights out for this one.
You can't do that either these days, you can't. Strange little boys that you don't really know. Do you want to see a trick?
Do you like cocktail sausages, Benjamin?
It's not. Yeah. Okay, that's just, yeah. Anyway, we're in the scented room again, and Jonathan antagonises.
You can't resist.
No, he can't. No, one more time. What does he do?
He asks them to put their level of bafflement on a scale from 1 to 10. I do this to everyone now. I ask everyone to put things on scales from 1 to 10. He then makes them all leave except for Benjamin.
Yeah, so they stand outside for around 30 seconds, and then they open the door to reveal what?
The painting in front of Benjamin on the floor.
Yeah, there are disbelieving gasps, and after Jonathan advises Benjamin not to reveal his trick, magicians don't do that, he then mentions the reward to Teresa.
I think Maddie mentions the reward to Teresa, pulls her aside, and she seems willing to pay the reward, but Maddie says she should just use it to get her son a life, which is quite harsh, but probably fair.
Harsh but fair, and I think Jonathan is very impressed with this because he'd assumed that she was asking for her own benefit. So we're back to the therapy session again.
Yes, it turns out that the demolition of her childhood home was not as cathartic as she expected.
No, a lot of old bollocks, I think she says. In fact, she might have stepped in front of the digger had Jonathan not showed up.
I'm not sure that would be an effective method of committing suicide.
No, they're very slow, aren't they? They just sort of lift you up and maybe, break your leg or something like that. Flailing around on the top of it. And the chap would stop as well anyway. He
would stop driving it. It's like lying in front of a steamroller. It's like, I'm going at 2 miles an hour. I'm just going to put the brakes on.
Well, that was a Hitchhiker's Guide, isn't it? Right at the start of that, the line front to protest.
Yeah. Maddie explains to her therapist what the solution to the problem was.
Okay, can you explain to us?
Well, we kind of get flashbacks to the chat with the girls, and Jonathan explains that they knew one of them must be responsible. And they make a connection. One of them's the younger sister of the sacked nanny Melissa.
Yes, the ex-babysitter, yeah.
Yeah, and the younger girl points out that she'll be at her boyfriend's, they should go and speak to her there.
Yeah, so through this flashback we hear that Melissa's motive was to pay back Sylvester and Teresa for, what was it? Effectively, emotional neglect of Benjamin.
Yeah, it's not for herself. I mean, she didn't like getting fired. She was very unhappy about it, but it's really the little boy that she's worried about.
And I think this is a scenario at this point that Maddie can certainly empathise with.
I would say so.
I mean, what she wanted to do was to deprive them of something without actually stealing it. And we hear that Jonathan is impressed.
Everyone could see it had vanished, but where to? Floor and walls didn't offer any clue. It had to be the window in the ceiling. But how the hell do you get up there? And how do you open a window that doesn't open? Answer, you didn't. The window had nothing to do with it. And once you cross that one off, you're down to only one possibility, which is so gloriously unlikely it never occurred to anyone. The contrasting grain on each side told the whole story. The way the original Spanish builders had secured the hand-carved panels to the frame, you'd ended up with a door that was technically hollow.
It was Jeff first saw the possibilities. One day when he was over there helping me clear out my stuff.
Melissa?
Finding an hour when Eric and Martha were out of the way was easier than you'd think. Then it was just a question of opening a slit at the bottom. A couple of nails that could be swiveled across. We rehung it. Everything was set. And Judith thought of the idea of the school outing. It wouldn't be hard to engineer, and who's going to suspect a bunch of 12-year-old girls?
So what happened? 6 of you went in, but only 5 came out? Who's counting schoolgirls? Half a minute's just about enough. Your pals are outside keeping Martha busy with a few questions. So when the next group goes in, and everyone's glued to the empty frame, you merge in with them. For my money, a world-class trick.
Okay, you've got some issues with the solution there.
Yeah, this idea of the painting sliding up inside the door. A couple of problems. First of all, if it's too, what's the best word? Solid, it's not going to bend enough to get under the door. And if it's too soft, it's going to be impossible to make it go up inside the door because it's just going to fold back on itself. Mm-hmm. So it would need to be the absolute perfect level of firmness for this to work. And there's no realistic way that the people could have known this in advance.
No, there is a degree of suspension disbelief required in this one.
And the idea that it just wouldn't fall back out again as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not convinced by it at all.
No. And the point of it is, I'm not sure it's actually made at any point.
Well, it did cause them distress, and I think that's what she wanted to do.
Well, the distress was the fact they couldn't get their insurance money. If they got their insurance money, they probably wouldn't have been that bothered.
Yeah, that's the point. How would they know that, in fact, they've not just given them 1.5 million in insurance and they still technically own the painting as well, which may, they'd find at some point in the future. I'd imagine that hinge would break or someone, whilst cleaning, would notice it.
Almost certainly. Anyway, yeah, that's the story.
Jonathan then guesses at what happened with the attack on Sylvester and the related footprints.
That's a bit of a stretch as well, or his wife probably hit him and split his head open just before he came in.
Yeah, so he says that Teresa had struck him in a rage. I think this was to do with the masseuse.
Yeah, which he didn't know about. Yeah,
and then they decided to use the injury to support the theft claim for these insurance purposes, which I suppose in some way mitigates against the nonsense of the plan about the talcum powder.
Yes, on the spur of the moment. So yeah, there was no dust, so they put this talc down. Yeah, the whole thing. But that doesn't make sense either. So he gets this clue because they faked this escape.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't know what had actually happened. So there's not a connection between that and the crime.
Yep.
They're two completely separate things.
And also, just going back to the whole point about the insurance claim, what they're trying to do to support their insurance claim would have exactly the opposite effect.
Yes, it was stupid.
When professional loss adjusters come in to assess what's happened, it's not your normal common or garden insurance guy who is looking for TVs in a house in an estate somewhere.
Yeah,
this is for 1.5 million in a large mansion, so this will be your top art guys.
Yeah. The other thing, the idea that within 3 seconds of this painting going missing, he's decided, there's not going to be enough evidence to get the insurance, I better fake an injury.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is when this adjuster comes in, this investigator,
yeah, he'll immediately spring that.
Yeah, I mean, these guys are like, they are detectives.
Yeah.
They'll look at him and go, wait a second, that was just talc down there. No, this is obviously a setup. This hasn't been stolen. This is an inside job. You're not getting your money.
Yeah. No, it's ridiculous. Yeah, and like I say, why would he immediately assume there's not enough evidence? There's no evidence there is, what evidence there isn't.
Mm-hmm. They're buffoons.
Yeah, but Jonathan's reasoning doesn't make sense, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He's figured this out on the basis of not only identifying what happened, but also figuring out their very faulty logic.
The only thing, did we not hear earlier, I don't think we mentioned it, did someone not mention that Teresa was quite violent? Did she not? I can't remember if that
Maybe the nanny?
Yeah.
But I don't remember.
Even then, it's a leap.
Yeah. Yeah, to imagine that she must have hit him on the head. It comes out of nowhere. So, I don't like that part of it.
No. Back to the therapy session, and Maddie finally stops talking. Because remember, this is that was all sort of flashbacks. This was in the therapy session. She was explaining to the therapist.
Yeah, and she explains that she can't use this for one of her books because it would drop the nanny.
Yes.
It's interesting. I read somewhere in the Jonathan Creek book that this was originally going to be a subplot for another mystery. Mm-hmm. And then they said that there was enough to it that they could use it. I wonder then if the insurance side of it was added just to flesh it out.
Yeah, to give
and
a
that's
B.
why you've got these sort of two elements to the mystery.
Quite possibly, yeah. That sounds likely. Over in Maddie's house. Now, she is incredulous at why Sylvester and Teresa would stay together considering their lack of communication.
Yeah, and ironically, she and Jonathan are both talking without listening to the other.
Mm-hmm. He's more interested in reading about Adam, who went to Buckingham Palace concealing 6 birds about his person.
And she's talking about communication and asking if he would ever consider settling down and having a family. And when he responds very probably, she realises he's not listening to her.
No, he's talking about how the Queen ended up with a canary up her skirt.
And we finish with Maddie tossing talcum powder in Jonathan's face, hilariously casting back to the terrible plan.
Yeah. So, an okay episode.
There were things in it that were good.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I liked a lot of the performances. I liked Sylvester Lefley.
I thought he was very Shatner-esque. I think I said to you off mic earlier, his performance reminded me a lot of Bill Shatner in Columbo.
Well, let's talk about some of the guest stars of this week. Lefley was played by Bob Monkhouse, a British TV legend. He died in 2003, aged 75. He was a comic writer, a stand-up himself, an actor, a TV game show host, a radio performer. So a general all-round entertainer in the old-school style.
Was it Bob Monkhouse who had his joke book stolen?
He did, yes. I mean, famously, he, over his entire career, had a collection of jokes and anecdotes and stories and all sorts of things in bound volumes. And they were stolen, but they had them returned 18 months later. I'm not sure if that's something to be proud of. Someone steals them and reads them and says, "No, you can have those back." But yeah, that was a few years ago. You might find this interesting. Whilst still at school, he wrote for comics including The Beano and the Dandy.
There you go.
As a schoolboy.
That's before I read them, but yeah.
He also wrote over 100 erotic works.
No, he didn't.
He did.
You're joking.
No, he wrote dirty books. Well, Bob.
I don't believe you. I'm going to pretend that never got said.
I'm going to try and read some of them. Now, he is most famous, I suppose, for our generation for being the presenter of A Family Fortunes.
Is he?
Well, for my generation, then maybe. Now, Family Fortunes was the British equivalent of, I think in America it's called Family Feud.
Right.
Also Celebrity Squares, Bob's Full House, and the Bob Monkhouse Chat Show. 2 of his children sadly died before him. One from cerebral palsy, the other from a drugs overdose. So a sad part of his life. I think you know this. It's a little bit morbid, but I think it's worthwhile. He died of prostate cancer, and before he passed away, he recorded an advert promoting the prevention and the diagnosis of that particular disease, and it was shot beside a grave where he talked about it. He says, "I'm dead now," and then he, at the end of the advert, he sort of ghostly disappeared into the grave. I mean, he was himself cremated, he didn't have a grave, but it's interesting. It's not something you see an awful lot of.
I think you can understand why he would think that would be both funny and useful. thing to do.
Oh, it's
in his
very,
later days.
very worthwhile. I think famously, again, before our time, I think Yul Brynner did the same
Right.
anti-smoking campaign in the States back in the 70s, whenever that would have been. His wife, Lady Teresa Cutler, was played by Christine Kavanagh. She was born in 1957. Starred in the John Lennon Story, A Room with a View, Doctors, Holby City, The Bill, Seaforth, Underbelly, Casualty, Bread, and she was also in Doctor Who.
Bingo!
Yay! She's married to the actor Jack Ellis. Benjamin was played by Sam Bradley. This is the only thing he's been in.
Oh,
Little
okay.
Benji. So there you go, Sam. If you're listening, get in touch. Eric was played by Peter Copley. Died in 2008, aged 93. He has been in Empire of the Sun, Help, that was the Beatles movie, Doctors, Casualty, The Bill, Cadfael. I like that, actually, like a bit of Cadfael.
I didn't watch it. My parents really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I watched it and I read a lot of the books when I was younger. One Foot in the Grave, Crown Court, The Foundation, The Gold Robbers, Imperial Palace, A Game of Murder, Doctor Who, The Avengers, and The New Avengers.
I think we got Bingo in there as well, didn't we?
Just about. And I think he was a bit of a well-known stage actor, a bit of a thespian. Martha, she was played by Valerie Colgan. Some big Hollywood movies. Aliens, Saving Private Ryan, Anne of Green Gables, and Pollyanna. That's me. What have you got for us?
One little trivia note, Alan Davis reflecting on working with Bob Monkhouse as a fellow comedian, put to shame by Monkhouse between takes, writing jokes and doing other comedy work, and asking him about it while Davis was doing nothing and fighting boredom. And he's talked about how he felt kind of put to shame by that.
Yeah, you would do. He was a powerhouse, a legend.
He is, and yeah, well remembered, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fondly remembered.
Thankfully, given the generation in which he worked at the BBC.
Let's not do that. Okay, I think before we go, we've got an episode review.
Okay.
Motive.
Revenge.
Mm-hmm.
Also, to punish them for child neglect.
Yeah. Alibi.
Wasn't there.
Yeah, the disappearance, it wasn't there, yeah. Clues, okay, so we've got the fake prints, the perfume smell, the spam sandwich, and the mention of Melissa's name. Was there anything else?
The fact that only the girls and Martha were in the room between the painting being there and not being there.
Yeah.
I guess.
The gotcha. It's an odd one this week.
Well, they kind of didn't do well. It's weird.
I mean, the revelation of the painting being pulled from the door, or Benjamin having it, I suppose, is the gotcha moment. But there wasn't really it wasn't a criminal as such.
No. I wonder if the insurance covers the cost of having the painting restored. Like, obviously it's been cut, so that's damage only to be repaired.
Yeah.
I don't care very much, but I wonder.
Okay, so next time we have The Problems at Gallows Gate, Part 1.
We divvy that one up.
Yeah, we'll do it over 2 weeks.
There you go, something to look forward to, folks. 2 hours plus of
Gallows
chat about that
Gate.
one. Do we do 2 hours plus tonight?
Yep, it's quite a long half hour. That's us then.
Yeah, usual folk come and talk to us on social media at Creek Podcast, both Facebook and Twitter, jonathancreekpodcast.com. There'll be a post about this and each and every episode where you can talk about your theories and your thoughts and your likes and dislikes and so on. And if you have 5 minutes, go and leave us a star rating and a written review and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, and that would go down very well with us.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see you for next week.
Cheerio.
Or 2 weeks. Bye.